In the meantime, speaking of, let's dive into some more viewer comments about my interview with Portland Police Sergeant Brent Maxey. He's been on the front lines of the protests most nights. The whole interview, it's more than an hour long, is up on YouTube right now. And last night, we kind of pulled back the curtain a little bit on just how much the piece upset some people who felt like watching a journalist question a police officer equated to anti-police bias. I think we've cleared that up. It's what reporters do. And Sergeant Maxey answered every question in a composed and thoughtful way. Todd Gardner actually agreed. He wrote on the YouTube page, "I honestly do not know how this officer is so calmly answering this reporter's questions." Next one, Igor Ozerski wrote, "Thank you, KGW, for having this interview, and big thanks to Portland Police and Officer Maxey for stepping up and doing a great job, praying for all officers' safety." Then there were those who watched the full interview and came away with takes like these. Kathleen Schultz writing on Facebook, "If the officer wants to say that all protesters are guilty for not leaving, then cops are all guilty for the misbehavior of bad cops." We appreciate the comments, as always. Keep them coming. And with that, tonight is the third and final installment of our interview. I asked Sergeant Maxey his take on the argument for defunding the police. Do you see any merit in the argument that if defunding the police, the second part of that is reallocating the funding toward other facets of our society and other systems within our society that would, in the minds of advocates, they believe, reduce crime and reduce poverty and a lot of factors that lead to the need for as many police officers as we currently have? Well,
and here's what I say, and maybe this isn't a popular opinion amongst my peers. I can't speak for everybody, but I think yes. I think if you can figure out a way, if somebody can figure out a way, because we're the last link in the chain. I mean, everything else has failed to the point where it gets to where we're intervening. And we do so much right now. We respond to crimes, we respond to mental health calls, we respond to all kinds of things, a lot of them that maybe we shouldn't be responding to. If there was a way to, I would fully support it. If there was a way to take to reduce our calls, for example, mental health. If there was a way to reduce our calls and have somebody else go, as long as it was obviously, it would have to be safe, that would be great. And taking that money from the police bureau budget or reducing the number of officers is fine. But right now, what I believe is happening is they're putting the cart before the horse. You're taking the money away with no plan or no solution to fill that void, other than the patrol officers that are already stretched super thin. And you can't just take things away without having a replacement for it in place, ready to go.
I mean, what you just described is the definition of defunding the police, which admittedly is a blanket term that's been applied to a lot. But I just want to be clear, you're saying that part of it you would endorse a definition of it.
I mean, it makes sense, but again, you have to have things in place. You can't just start pulling funds away from the police bureau without a plan. And right now, I don't see a plan. And so, do you defund the police right now? I don't believe you do. Absolutely not. If through different organizations and entities and things, if they step up, or if the state steps up or the county or whomever to fill these gaps, and they figure that out, and then eventually you can start to siphon funds away from the police because you don't need it anymore. If that works, that's great. I mean, I'm not obviously making those decisions, but I think any patrol officer out here would support not going to the mental health call when really we're not needed. We're simply there for a to support the social workers or whomever. If they can do that without us, I don't think there's an officer out here that would argue with that.
We genuinely appreciate Sergeant Maxey's time and candor in that interview. And once again, the full hour and 15 minutes, and I think actually 16 minutes, is on YouTube right now. You can check it out on the KGW YouTube channel. And again, while you're there, we hope you subscribe.